So, the internet would have you believe that you can't put these strings on that without all sorts of things going wrong, such as damaging your guitar or sounding like poop. Let's hear it. By the way, I've been using acoustic strings exclusively on this guitar for over a decade, and it's just fine. All you can hear on my channel, the bass, the guitars, it's all made from phosphor bronze strings. So you got over, how long, I don't know, over an hour and a half of recording proving that it works just fine. And personally, I really like my tone, so it's false. It's a myth that you can't do it and have good balanced tone. It's just not true. Now, why then would it still be the predominant view that you can't do it? Because people would tell you that it works, but it works terribly, you could damage your guitar, and if not, it still sounds terrible. Well, that's not true, obviously. So, my theory is simply, before we dive into more details of why, because there's some, actual reasons why this myth came to be, at least in my opinion. But I just think the one main reason why people think that is because they would make for very bad guitar techs. Most people that play guitar, in my experience, even very good ones, don't know that much about the physics of their instrument and surely can't set it up themselves. Even a bunch of guitar techs don't really know how it works. Okay, those I don't consider good guitar techs, but I've got a bunch before I learned to do it myself. Actually, that's why I did in the first place, because I was using alternate tunings like drop C, drop B, and then so on. I've experimented more after. And they were just puzzled and they didn't even know how to set it up proper. They would just tell you that you shouldn't do this and you're forcing something that shouldn't be. And yeah, and it's ludicrous. It's nonsense. Of course you can do it. You just gotta understand how to do it. So let's dive into it. I think the first reason is a mismatch of expectations. Picture, if you will, close your eyes and imagine that you asked for a glass of apple juice, right? And then I bring you a glass, imagine it's full, I bring you a glass of orange juice, and then you have your eyes closed and you try to drink it. You're probably gonna be shocked, perhaps even grossed out, because, as an apple juice, orange juice does a very, very bad job. So you might even be grossed out. It's just a mismatch of expectations. Well, it's the same with steel strings versus bronze strings, Gonna show you. By the way, I've never tried to hide that I'm using bronze strings. I mean, with strings these big, because I tune very low, I was expecting that somewhere down the line somebody would comment, are you using acoustic strings? Because you can clearly see they're golden. I'm gonna show it closer. These are not nickel-plated steel, obviously. So yeah, it's the same as my analogy, okay? With the apple juice versus orange juice. Bronze strings do not sound the same as steel or nickel strings. It's the wounding around it. It just doesn't sound the same. It makes sense. And so when you do it, your EQ is going to be completely thrown off. Your entire signal chain is going to be completely thrown off because, the tone within the strings themselves is just completely different. It still sounds like a guitar, you get me, but, the built-in EQ, if you will, of the strings is not the same at all. This is not a drop-in replacement for electric strings. You can't expect something that was designed, you tune your tone and you spend hours fine-tuning, you're dialing your tone for your steel strings. You can't just drop bronze strings and expect magic. It's not gonna be good. Unless you're very lucky, I guess. So, yeah, that's why, people basically, they're too lazy to adjust their gear. They just go, it's not the same, therefore it's wrong, therefore it can't be done, therefore it sucks. So acoustic strings don't work. Well, that's lazy judgment, okay? Come on. Strings are underrated. The sound comes from there first, okay? So the entire signal afterwards should highlight the characteristics of this, not the other way around, at least in my opinion. So point is, it's not magic. You gotta respect the string, otherwise, you get what you get. Number two, you can't put a standard acoustic set on electric and expect good balance. I believe that's the second reason why this myth is still around. People that don't know what they're doing and they're just pop a standard acoustic set on an electric guitar and, well, you get what you get, okay? Now here's why. Long story short, for volume balance across the strings, so what I mean by that is if you want all your strings to sound even, or good enough. And I don't mean acoustically, I mean with the pickups. If you want the volume to be relatively even, what you're gonna need is what electric guitar players tend to refer to as a light top, heavy bottom string set. So as you can see, I got something like that here. Very thick strings here and quite light strings here. I don't remember exactly the gauges by heart because I wrote it down anyways. But I know this one is an 80 and this one is something like, is that 10? Something like that. So yeah, but I'm also tuned very low, okay? But that gives you an idea. So very light, very thick. Of course, you don't have to have a suspension bridge cable. That's just because I use this guitar for all the way down to G sharp and F sharp. And even once F, but that was pushing it. Anyways, so that's why you don't need strings that thick. But the general idea, yeah, you need thin here and way heavier here. Basically what you would find in stores if you find a light top, heavy bottom type set for electric would give you a rough idea of a good starting point of what you should have, but as bronze strings instead. That'd be a starting point. Because you see, only the core is magnetic on bronze strings, whereas nickel is magnetic and steel is as well. So, it's all the same when it's the plain strings, but these ones, it's basically a wrapping around the string, basically, to make it bigger. The wrapping is bronze, phosphor bronze, so that's not magnetic. So you need to consider the size of the steel inside that, which you will, when you put the new strings, you see, you clearly see the metal core. So that's what the pickup is actually gonna pick up. That's a nice non-existent play on word. I don't know what I'm saying. So custom sets are the way to go. To summarize that second point, you should not expect awesome results if you just pop in a standard acoustic set. You need to go single strings and make your custom set. Otherwise, yeah. Third reason I believe this myth still exists, lack of proper guitar adjustments. Like I was just saying, steel, nickel, or magnetic, but what you may not have realized is about the pickup height. Normally, people just look at the distance between the bottom of the string and the pickup. But really, what you don't understand that you're doing, or maybe you do, I don't know, is that it's the distance between the magnetic metal and the pickup. So in this case, you should instead eyeball the middle of the string instead of the edge. So that means that upon dropping those strings on your guitar, the acoustic strings, well, your setup is now wrong. It's the equivalent of suddenly having your pickup too low on this side and too high on this side. So if you want at home to test what the folks that tried acoustic strings the wrong way on their electric have had in terms of issues, you can just use your regular electric guitar. You don't need to spend anything. Just take a screwdriver, and if you have stuff like this, and just lower drastically the side of the thick strings on your pickup. Put it like this, and find out why they decided that it was absolutely impossible to use. But that's just lack of understanding of how it works. By the way, if you bass players out there, there's tape wound strings. That's also non-magnetic. I've even seen some phosphor bronze sets for electric. Well, really, technically speaking, I am quite confident you could just, in this case, pop in acoustic bass set on a bass, because you see, because all the strings are wound and all the chords are already pretty big, what would happen is all you would have to do, I think, is just raise your pickup height so that, instead of, basically you just have to keep the distance you normally have between the edge of the string and the pickup, and instead move it up so it's the middle of the string, and then you're back in working order as usual. So yeah, but ironically, these things are considered normal. Like tape wound strings for bass is considered normal. It's non-magnetic, but you do the same on an electric guitar and suddenly it's weird. Well, that doesn't make any sense. So what do we do now that basically, as far as the guitar is concerned, by putting an acoustic string set on there, it's kind of like for the guitar, it's like the pickup is too low on the low string side. So what do? We just raise it on that side and lower it on that side. That's it. As far as the angle, well, you can just adjust by ear, but that's the general idea. Number 4, why this myth still exists, in my opinion. I think this one sums it all up. If you still call your string sets 9s or 10s and so on, when really that doesn't tell jack about like 5 strings out of 6 or out of 7 or 8 or 9, you get the idea with people having harps these days. I'm joking, but you get me. If that's you, if you're still calling your string sets by the size of one of the strings, well then yeah, trying acoustic strings on electric will probably be unpleasant for you. You might want to start in new mode by reading the back of your string pack and learning what gauges of strings you're actually using, because they're not all the same. And yeah, when you go phosphor bronze, you go custom. So like, you're probably better off starting going custom with nickel-plated steel or steel, and yeah, get accustomed to how your instrument works. So to conclude, well, before I conclude, why would you use a phosphor bronze set on electric, you ask, right? Because then, you gotta customize and find what fits and so on. So, it's a bit more hassle. Well, actually, it's a lot more hassle to figure it out at first, right? Well, but once it works, it works. Why would you do that? Well, number 1, it lasts way longer. So, for strings to still sound good and fresh on electric, unless they're coated, it'll last 2 weeks before it starts to sound different. And eventually it sounds dead and dull, and they lose tension a lot more. These, they don't really lose much tension. The tone, in my opinion, it sounds better when it's slightly corroded. It's gonna sound funny to me, but like when it's slightly corroded, I don't know, it's just it's a good electric guitar tone to me. So if you like to just never change your strings unless one breaks, that's a good option. There's another thing too. They're literally heavier, and that's metal. For instance, a 70 gauge in phosphor bronze is roughly equivalent to a 72 or even 73 in nickel-plated steel. So, you're going up a gauge and a half or something like that without even having bigger strings. So that's cool. And when you down tune all the way down into the abyss like I do, well, that starts to be an advantage. Another thing is, well, this one is either good or bad, but they sound different. So depending on your taste, you might actually like the sound of these better than the sound of the regular strings. Just like folks might prefer full steel strings versus like nickel plated. So this was a matter of taste. Personally, I prefer this now. So, Another thing is, they feel different on your fingers. Personally, I can't stand nickel strings anymore. I don't know, something about it doesn't feel right. So, again, those are personal preference, but, when you're doing art, you're doing creation, whatever feels right is right. So, there are no hard rules. The only rules that we're dealing with here, and the only rules that should be, in my opinion, are, the laws of physics. So can this work on electric? Absolutely. Can this sound amazing? Absolutely. Should you do it? Maybe and maybe not. I mean, it depends on your creative process, your taste, so on. And of course, the time you're willing to invest to, know how it works. But that goes for everything else. It's just that because there's less people using these, actually, to my knowledge, I'm probably the only one using it this much, this in depth, every single day that I play guitar. So, it's a bit of a new uncharted territory. I've did quite a lot of the paving the way, I guess you could say. So I know a lot about these from using it all the time, and I designed a bunch of string sets. So yeah, I know pretty much all there is to know on the topic. Next time somebody wonders about this question, can you put acoustic strings on an electric? Please refer them to this video, because at the time of posting, there is no other video or text or anything, any post that comes from somebody who actually is using it daily for over a decade and knows all about the topic inside and out. So I'm pretty much the top reference on this topic, which I suppose is a pretty niche topic, admittedly. But still, So if you're interested, I might make another video on this. Comment down below if you want to know more. And of course, check out my album and the rest of the channel. I mean, these strings are all over the entire channel. So if you want more facts, more examples and context of how this sounds, clean, or how this sounds with distortion and different music styles. There's plenty of examples, so just check it out. It's all made with these, so it's kind of funny that I'm making a video specifically on this when, well, really, all other videos are using these anyways. So yeah, acoustic strings on electric, they rule. Myth debunked.